So what if the real solution to our most annoying, repetitive workplace conflicts wasn't in some business book, but was actually hidden in 19th century novels and, of all things, quantum physics? Today, we're diving into a really radical approach to leadership that does exactly that. We know the feeling, right? It's that same team disagreement, that same friction on a project, that same unresolved tension that just keeps coming back, no matter what you try to do. It really feels like you're stuck in a loop you just can't escape. But what if the problem isn't the conflict itself? What if it's the way we're trying to solve it? And here's the absolute heart of the issue. Our leadership playbook, the one most of us use, was written for a world that was predictable, that was linear. A world with a single fixed truth where time just moves from point A to point B. But the workplace today, it's messy. It's emergent. It holds multiple, even contradictory truths all at the same time. We're basically using an old map for a completely new territory. And honestly, it's no wonder we keep getting lost.
So here's our game plan for today. First, we're going to look at that conflict loop that gets us so stuck. Then we'll uncover a solution from some very unlikely places. We'll break down two really game-changing ideas, point out the leadership traps you've got to avoid, and then, and this is the best part, we'll turn all that theory into a practical toolkit for a totally new way of listening.
All right, first up, the workplace conflicts loop. Let's really get to the bottom of why our current methods just aren't cutting it anymore. Here's the most crucial point. We see a complex problem, one with a ton of different perspectives and voices, and our first instinct is to find the right answer, the one single straight-line path forward. But that whole approach just flattens the complexity, right? It forces one single story onto a situation that is, by its very nature, multi-voiced. And when we do that, we don't actually solve the real underlying tension, we just kind of push it down. And we all know what gets suppressed will always come back up. Okay, so if that kind of linear thinking is the problem, where on earth do we find a better model? Well, this is where things get really interesting. The answer comes from two fields you would probably never, ever expect to see in the same sentence. So get this, we're pulling from the work of a literary theorist named Mikhail Bakhtin and his work on the novels of Dostoevsky, and from quantum physics, specifically as it's been applied to organizations by Dr. David Boje. Now, I know, that sounds completely wild, but stick with me here, because when you put these two ideas together, something incredibly powerful happens. So how do these two totally different fields actually combine? Well, it all boils down to two game-changing concepts: polyphony and quantum storytelling. First up, polyphony. Okay, this is Bakhtin's term for what he saw in Dostoevsky's novels. Instead of just one authorial voice telling you what's true, you get this whole chorus of different characters, and each one has their own complete, independent, and equally valid worldview. No single voice gets the final say. Now, just imagine applying that to a team meeting, not trying to force everyone to agree, but actually holding every single perspective as valid at the same time.
And this quote just gets right to the heart of it. The goal isn't to merge all the voices into some single agreeable harmony. No, it's to let the unmerged chorus exist together. And it turns out the real breakthroughs happen in that unresolved dynamic space between the voices.
And the second big idea is quantum storytelling. This one asks us to stop thinking about a story as a simple timeline of events. Instead, think about a recurring argument you might have at work. The memory of the last time you had this fight, that's the past, and the anxiety about where this argument is going, that's the future. They are both right there in the room, shaping the conversation right now. They're all entangled, influencing this exact moment. This reframes communication completely. A difficult conversation isn't just a problem to be solved with logic. It's an energy field. And that means it's an opportunity to shift the underlying emotional tone, to untangle all these competing stories, and to allow for real, genuine transformation to happen. So if we're aiming for this polyphonic quantum approach, what are the big traps we need to avoid? The source material calls them monologic errors. Basically, they're the classic mistakes that force a single voice onto a situation and pretty much guarantee that the conflict will just keep coming back. So the first trap is a mouthful: authorial puppetization. This is when a leader asks for input, but really they're just fishing for quotes and stories to support a decision they've already made. You're not actually listening, you're just casting your team as puppets in your own pre-written script. And the result? People feel totally used, not heard. And the real, unofficial stories, they just go underground, waiting to cause problems later. The second trap is moralizing monologism. This happens whenever we shut down a really complex, ambiguous debate by just slapping a simple right or wrong label on it. It's a way of avoiding discomfort, sure, but it stops the organization from ever actually processing the deep paradoxes of a conflict. Real transformation requires us to sit in that uncomfortable gray area, not run away from it. And the third trap is neglect of unfinalizability. This is the classic mistake of rushing to a solution way too fast. We just want to check the box, move on, and declare the problem finished. But living stories and living conflicts are never truly finished. By forcing a premature ending on it, we make sure that all those latent tensions, the parts of the story that haven't even emerged yet, will absolutely, positively erupt down the line. Okay. I know this all might sound very theoretical, maybe a little out there, but the real power of this framework is how it's been translated into practical, actionable tools that leaders can actually use. Yeah, this isn't just theory. These concepts have been turned into real leadership tools. Imagine using a storytelling audit to actually map out the hidden, competing stories that are causing all the friction on your team. Or using a restoring worksheet to guide a tough conversation away from blame and toward a breakthrough that nobody saw coming. This is how these big ideas become real-world solutions you can use on Monday morning. So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, a restoring process might follow these 3 steps. First, you unpack the friction. You move beyond the blame game to understand the emotions driving the conflict. Second, you embrace duality. You reframe the story by exploring its opposites, like seeing both the serious and even the comic side of an issue. This breaks that rigid linear frame. And finally, you co-create a new story, shifting from conflict toward a resolution that actually emerges from the group itself. So after exploring all of this, from Dostoevsky to quantum physics to actual leadership tools, what's the one single thing that we should really take away from all this? It really all comes down to this. The core skill this whole framework teaches is a new, much deeper way of listening. It's about listening not for the right answer, but for the whole chorus of voices. It's listening with the awareness that the story is never just a straight line, but a complex, unfolding field of potential. And that leaves us with one final question to think about. In our teams, in our organizations, and in our conflicts, what if we stopped searching for that single heroic voice to give us the right answer? And what if we started listening for the wisdom that's hidden in the entire, unmerged polyphonic chorus? What might we be able to solve then?